Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to build this e-commerce website with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, if you're looking for a way to host this e-commerce website online to show to your potential employers, then I'll recommend you check out Hostinga because they have cheap but quality service. Alright, let me take you through the website you're going to build in this video. We have this nice carousel effect here where if I go to the next slide, you see this content slides down and the image slides up. Below that, we have our categories. We have this nice zoom effect. Below that, we have our new arrival products. When I hover over each product, you can see this nice zoom effect and fade. We have our icons also with this nice hover effect. Below that, we have some banner containing some content and some image here. Below that, we have our featured products. After that, we have the contact section and a footer at the bottom. Now, if I click on shop, you can see we have all our products and we can also filter by price, popularity, sale, rating. At the end, we have some pagination. Now, when I click on the first product, it will lead us to the product details page where we have this image. You can see this nice zoom effect. This very nice zoom effect. This is the most interesting thing I've ever created. And we have the title of the product, the price, and this filter, and we have the related product also. Now when we go to our login page, you can see we have email, password, repeat password, login. We can also go to our sign up page where we have the same things there. When we go to the cart page, we have the products in the cart. Now let's go back home and see our pop-up again. Now guys, if you like this video, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. So go to my channel and hit the subscribe button so that I can also reach 10,000 subscribers. Okay. Without wasting my time, let's get into the video. Alright, on my desktop I have this folder with the name e-commerce website. Now let me open this, and within this folder we have a subfolder called images containing all the images you're going to use in building the e-commerce website. Now you can get access to these images from my website. So go to your browser. I'm going to use Firefox. Go to your browser and search for WP Codevo, which is my website, and press enter. And this is the e-commerce website I'm going to build in this tutorial. But in the future you might not see this post here. So go to categories and close this. And in categories, click on HTML and CSS to open this, and from here you can have access to the blog. So click on it, scroll down and look for download images here if you want to code along. So click this and this will redirect you to Google Drive, and from here you can click download. After downloading the zip file, extract it and copy all the images in the images folder and paste it in the images folder in your root directory. So let me close this and go back to my project and open it with a text editor. I'm going to use VS Code. You can use any text editor of your choice. Let me close this. The first thing I'm going to do is to create two additional folders, which CSS and JS folder. Within the CSS folder, let's create a file which is styles.css, and also within the JS folder, let's create two files, index.js, also slider.js for our carousel. And within the root folder, let's create a new HTML file, which is within the root folder. So you can right click and click on new file, index.html. Let's create our boilerplate using exclamation sign with shift, then change the title to e-commerce, and let's comment out the links you're going to include. So we need box icons, we also need glide.js for our slider, We also need our style sheet. So style sheet. Now, before the ending body tag, let's also comment the script, which is glide.js. And we also need our slider. We also need our index.js. Let's save this. Go back to your browser and search for, let me close this. Search for box icons. Click on the first link and click usage. Now scroll down, click import the CSS, then copy this link, go back to your text editor and paste it below the comment box icon. Save this, go back to the browser again and search for cdn.js. Click on the first link, search for glide.js. So we need glide.js. We need a glide.min.js, but I'm not going to copy this. Let's copy the glide.js. So copy glide.js. We also need glide.core.css. Copy it again. We also need glide.theme.css. So go back to your text editor and below the glide.js comment, I'm going to use link. Use Windows V. So Windows V to bring out our clipboard, and let's look for glide.core. So this is it. Below that, let's include a theme. So Windows V again and look for glide.theme.css. Now scroll down and go to the JS and let's write our script. We need the src one. Windows V again and look for glide.js. Save this. Now let's include our slider JS file that we created. So I'm going to use script again, slider.js, and we also need our index. So script again, then index.js. But you can see I'm doing a mistake here. So we need to enter our JS folder before. So let's enter our JS folder again. Save this. Let's include our style sheet. So let's use link again. And we have to enter into our CSS folder. Then let's look for styles.css. Save this. Let's close this. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is to write some reset code in our styles.css. So go to your styles.css and first and foremost, let's include our fonts. So go to your browser and search for Google Fonts. Google Fonts. Let's use Poppins, which is a very decent and clean looking font. We're going to choose 400, which is a regular. Let's look for 500 and semi bold, which is 600. So copy the CSS. So let's copy only this part. Close this. Go back to your text editor and paste it below the comment. Save this. Now come down here. Let's use our universal selector, and we need it before and after. We are going to set margin to 0, padding also to 0, and box sizing should be border box. Let's select our root and let's write some color variables here. So we need white, which is FFF. We also need black, which is 222. We need green. Green, the spelling is wrong. Green, which is 6C BE02. We need gray one, which is the first gray, F0 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 F0. Yeah. Then the second gray, gray 2, which is E9 D7 D3. I'll scroll down and comment basic reset. Yep. I think let's put this comment at the top here. So cut this and put it here. Then now let's target our HTML. I'm going to set font size to 62.5%. Then now the body. Let's set font family to Poppins. Poppins. That's the font we just included, which is Poppins. 400, 500, and 600 font weight. So you're going to use sans serif. Then we also want to set our font size to 16, so which is 1.6 rem. So background color should be our variable white, and let's set color to var black. Then font weight should be 400, which is the regular font weight. Let's also set font style to normal. Now let's select all our links and let's set text decoration to none. Then color should be inherit. So color should be inherit. That means all the links will inherit the color from the body, which is black. So let's select all our LIs and set list style to none. Now let's write a class for our container. We want max width should be 114. So max width should be 114 rem. 114 rem. Let's set margin to 0 top and bottom, then left and right should be auto. Let's set padding to 0.3 rem. Padding 0.3 rem. Now let's define a class dFlex and let's set display to flex, align items to center. Now let's comment header. Then go back to your, so let's close these JS files for now. Go back to your index.html and we are going to start with, so let's go to our browser and see what we are going to build. We are going to start with this top navigation, which includes the contact and some small links here, which is about us, FAQ, and contact. Go back to your text editor and here let's comment header. So we are going to start with the header tag. So header, let's set class to header, and ID also should be header. Within this, let's comment top nav. Then we are going to start with top nav, which is a div. Within top nav, let's have our container class and the secondary dFlex. Because you are going to set, this is the container, which is 114 rem, and this is our first item and our second item, which is a list item. So we are going to use dFlex to make them align items, which is center, then justify content to be space between. We'll go back to the text editor, and within the container class, let's have our paragraph. We are going to say order online or call us, and let's put some dummy numbers there. Let's say 00, then 2222, and maybe 5555. Then below the paragraph, let's start with our list, which is UL. Then let's give it a class of dflex to set display to flex. So LIs, and within the LI, let's have our links. And within these links, the first one will be about us. Press enter, copy this 2 times, then change about us. Yeah, let's change it to FAQ, frequently asked questions. Then let's change the last one to contacts. Let's save this, go back to our browser. First, we need to open the project with live server. So at the bottom here, I can click on go live or use the shortcut Alt LO. This will do the same thing. Open our browser. So we have our links, we have the paragraph, and we have the list, the UL, which is about us, FAQ, and contact. So go back to your text editor. Let's go to our styles.css, and let's write some styles for the top nav. So let's select our header. Then let's set position relative. Let's set min height to 100 VH. Let's set overflow to, so let's say overflow horizontal, the X, which is hidden. Let's now select our top nav and set background color to our color, which is green. Then font size should be 1.3. Color should be white. Scroll down and let's select the div in top nav. That's our container div. So this div, so this is the top nav, and the div within top nav, which is the container div. We are going to set justify content to space between, and the height of the div should be 4.5 rem. Let's select all the links in top nav. So I'm going to say top nav, and the links, let's set padding to 0, top and bottom, then left and right should be 5 rem. Let's set color to white. So let's go back to our browser, and we have our top nav, the paragraph, and our UL containing the links. Now the next thing is to create our navigation, which has our logo, then some links and icons. Go back to our index.html, and below the top nav, we are going to start with a div with a name. So below the top nav, let's write some comments, navigation. And below the comment navigation, let's start with a div navigation. Within navigation, let's have nav center. Let's give it a secondary class of container and another class of dflex. Within this nav center, let's have our logo, which is a link. So we start with link tag with the class logo, and within this logo, let's have an h1 with a text dance. Now below the logo, let's have our UL with a class nav list and a secondary class of dflex. Within nav list, let's have our nav items, item, And within nav item, we are going to have our link. So I'm going to write a, then nav link. It shouldn't be a div, it should be an li. So you have to start with li first. Li, go to the end and press Ctrl and space bar, then press enter. So we have our li and our link. And within the first, so let's copy this down 4 more times. Then within the first one, let's change the text to home. Here let's write shop, and here let's write terms. The next one, let's have about, and the last one, let's have contact. So the first link, let's put our index page there. Then the next one should be to product.html. The next one should be to, let's just put something there, maybe terms. Then this one also, let's put maybe about, we don't want it to go anywhere for now. Then the next one, let's put contact. So let's just put some dummy something there, contact. Let's go back to our browser, and we have this. So go back to our text editor. Let's move this last li. Then open your styles, and let's start writing some styles for the navigation. So let's write some comment navigation. Let's start with our navigation class, and let's set height to 6 rem. Then line height should be 6 rem. Let's select our nav center, and let's set justify content to space between. Then below nav center, let's have nav list, and we need our icons, but we haven't included the icons yet, so let's just comment this out. Then let's start with our nav center again. Let's select nav item and not last child. Let's set margin right to 0.5 rem. Let's select our nav links to nav center, nav link, and let's set font size to 1.5. Let's set it to 1.8 rem rather. Then padding should be 1 rem. Now when we hover over the links, let's change their colors. So hover, let's set color to green, which is our green variable, green. Now go back to our browser, and we have our links. So we have to focus on the icon. So go back to our index.html, and below the URL, below the URL, where is the URL? Below the URL, we are going to start with our icons. So let's write icons. We start with a div with a class icons and a secondary class of dflex. Let's select, or let's write our a tag, and let's give it a class of icon. The first one will go to login.html, and within this link, let's have our icon, which is ibx.bx-user. You can get this icon from box icon. So go to your browser and search for box icon. Sorry, click on the wrong link. box icon. Let's search for box icons and click on this, the first link. Then let's search for user, and this is the user you're going to use, so click on it. Then click font instead of web component. Click font, copy this, go to your text editor and paste it here. Now let's copy this down. So let's copy, let's see, the first one should be a link, then the second one, it should be a div. So let's say a div with a class of icon. Then let's put our icons there. So bx.bx that's search. Let's copy this down. And the third one, let's change the icon to bx dash heart. Then this last one, let's also have a link which will take us to our cart page. So change this to cart.html, and let's have bs-cart. Let's save this, go back to our browser, close this for now, and we have our icons. Now let's go to our let's go to styles.css instead, not index, and let's comment icons. So let's start with the icon class, and let's set cursor to pointer. Let's also set font size to 2.5 rem. Let's set padding to 0.1 rem. Color should be 555. Position relative. Now let's select our icon again. We don't need the last child. And let's set margin right to 1.5 rem. So in our icon, we are going to have some spans. So the first one, after the first one, we don't need any span there. We need a span in the cat.html and the heart, which is this one, the heart after the heart icon. So we need a span here, and let's give it a value of 0. Let's also give it a class of, let's say, dflex. Let's copy this and paste it in the cat also. So we have the numbers there. Go back to our styles.css and let's select our icon class. We need a span. Let's set position to absolute. Top should be 3 pixels. Right should be -3 pixels. Let's set background color to green. Let's set color to white. Also border radius should be 50%. Then font size, let's give it 1.3 rem. Height should be 2 rem. Let's set width to 2 rem. Then justify content to center. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we have our icons, and the heart, which is the wish list, has this number here, and the cat also has this number here. So let's go back to our index.html, and let's start with our hamburger. So after the icons. Let's write a comment hamburger. So let's start with a div with a class hamburger. And we need this. Let's have our icon. So we need bx.bx dash menu dash alt dash left. Let's save this. Also, before the ending UL, let's start with an li with a class icons, because we need these icons when we are in a mobile view. So we start with li with a class icons, then we need dflex also. Dflex. Let's go to our icons and copy everything within the icons div and paste it here. So let's save this, go back to our browser, and we should have this and our hamburger. So let's resize this. Let's set it to 768. So let's go back to our index.html. Everything is alright. Let's go to styles, and first we have to set them to display none. So let's start with our nav list. Then we want icons. Let's set it to display none. Let's select our hamburger also. So nav center, and we need hamburger. Let's give it display. So display none. Let's set font size to 2.3 rem. Let's set color to black. Let's also set cursor to pointer. Now let's write our media query. So we want media, and we want max width should be 768 pixels, not just 768. So 768 pixels. And let's select our nav list. We are going to set position to fixed. Top should be 12%. Let's set left to 0. Flex direction should be column. Align items should be flex start. Let's set box shadow. So some box shadow. Let's give it 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 10 pixels. Then RGBA. Let's give it 0, 0, 0, 10.2. Let's give it some opacity of 2. Now let's give it some background color of white. And height should be 100%. Let's set max width to 35 rem, and the width should be 100%. Let's set z index to 100. Now also let's give it some transition. We need all, then 300 milliseconds ease in and out. Below the nav list, let's start with nav list. So when nav list has the class of open, then we set left to 0, then width to 100%. But we'll come back to this when we add our JavaScript. Now let's select nav list, then nav item. Let's set margin to 0, 0, 1 rem, then 0. Let's also set width to 100%. Then the next one is to select our link. So nav list, and we want our link, which is nav link. Let's set font size to 2 rem, and we want color to be the black color, black. Now let's select our hamburger. So we need our hamburger. So let's say nav center, and we need our hamburger. And let's set display to block. Then let's select our icon also. So icons, let's set display to block also. But first, let's select our general icons class and set it to none. So we need none before we select the one in the nav list. And let's set icons to display flex. So let's go back to the browser and check if everything is working. So we have the nav list. These are our nav links. And we have our hamburger. The hamburger, let's set font size to 3rem and see. To 3rem. Then the nav top. The URL, let's set it to display none. Then the nav top again. No, it's not nav top. Top nav rather, not nav top. So top nav. Here should also be top nav. And we need the div within top nav. Let's set just file content to center, and height should be 3rem. Let's go back to the browser. And now we have our links and icon. So this is the hamburger. Let's resize this to iPhone 6. So everything is correct. Let's go back to our styles of CSS and let's set left to negative 100%. And let's set width to 0. So we are going to use JavaScript to add this open class to nav list. So you go to our index.js, and let's first select our hamburger. And let's use document.query selector. Let's select hamburger, and the next one, let's select our nav list. So nav and list should be document.query selector again. Let's select nav-list. Then if hamburger. So if we have hamburger, what is wrong here? Hamburger. Then let's give hamburger, let's say some event list on hamburger. So hamburger.add event list. Now we want click events. Let's write our callback function, and here let's set nav list. So nav list, let's give it a class. So class list, let's give it class list.toggle should be open. So let's toggle the open class on nav list. So we're going to toggle open class on nav list. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and when we click, we should see our nav list. When you click again, it should go back. Click. And we are done with the navigation and the top nav. The next thing is to start with our slider, this carousel. So we have this carousel, an image at the right and some content at the left. So let's go back to our text editor, then navigate to index.html, and below the header, let's start with, okay, it should be within the header. So before the ending header tag, let's start with hero. Now let's start with a div with a class hero. Then let's go to our browser and let's search for glide.js. Let's go to the official page, which is the first link, glidejs.com. Click on docs. Then we need the setup. So click on setup, scroll down, and click this. So let's copy this. Let's copy this whole thing here. Let's close this. Go back to our text editor and paste it here. Save this. Let's add an additional. Let's give it an ID of glide 1. So let's remove these two LIs, and within the first one, let's start with a div called center. Then let's give it another div. So within the center, let's have left div, and within the left div, let's have a span with a text new inspiration 2021. So we did a mistake here. Okay, so let's bring this down. Let's bring this one also down. After the span, let's have a heading with a text new, so it should be in caps, new collection. Then after the H1, let's have a paragraph with a text trending from men's and women's style collection. Then after the paragraph, let's have our link, which should have a class of hero-btn and a text of show now. Let's save this, and after the left div, let's have another div with a class right, and within the right div, let's start with our image. So image, let's give it a class of img1. Then the src, let's go into our images folder and let's search for hero1.png. So let's save this and go to our browser, and this is what we have for now. So let me close this for now, and nothing is happening. So go back to our index.html. Let's copy and paste the li, and let's change the image in the second li to 2. Save this. If you go back to your browser, you'll still not see any change. We have to initialize the slider, so we have to copy this id, go to our slider, so slider.js, and first let's write some comment hero carousel. Below that, let's select our slider, so we give it slider1 equals. Then let's use document.query selector. We want the id. Let's save this. Then below that, if slider1, then we want to have new glide, use parenthesis slider1, then some curly braces. Let's give it a type of carousel. Let's give it start at 0, comma, auto play should be 3000, then the gap should be 0. Let's also give it hover pause of true. Let's give it per view of 1. Then let's give it animation duration should be 800, and let's set animation timing function, timing timing func should be linear. Then here let's set mount and let's call it. So we mount it after this ending parenthesis, then you mount the slider. Let's check if the spellings are correct. So we type carousel, start at 0, autoplay, gap, overpause, preview, animation, duration, animation, timing func. So linear. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and we should see some effect. Now the slider is working. We need to write some styles for it. We'll go to styles.css, and scroll down. Let's start with a comment of hero. So let's select our hero class, and within the hero let's select our glide and underscore slides. Let's give background color of grade 2. Grade 2. We want position to be relative. Let's set height to calc. We want 100 VH minus 6 rem. Then let's give it margin 0.4 rem. Let's set overflow to hidden. Now let's select the center. So hero center, hero, and the center. Let's give it display of flex, align items center, justify content center. Let's give it position relative, height should be 100%. Let's set padding top to 3 rem. Let's save this. Now let's select our left hero. Let's set position absolute. Top should be 0, left should be 0, and let's set transition to all 1000 milliseconds. Then ease in and out. Now let's select the H1. So the H1, we are going to use so let's copy this, paste it here, and let's select H1. Let's set font size to 5 rem. Also let's set margin to 1 rem, then 0. Let's copy this whole thing down for the paragraph, and let's change the H1 to paragraph. Let's set font size to 1.6 rem, and margin bottom, so margin bottom should be 1 rem. So let's add 1 rem. So this is top, then top, left and right is 0, then bottom is 1. So let's change this to 0. Now let's select the button. So we paste the same thing down here, hero-btn. Let's set display inline block, padding should be 1 rem, then we want 3 rem. Let's give it font size of 1.6 rem, and let's set margin top to 1 rem. Background color should be green. Let's give it color of white. Now let's go back to our browser, and the image is causing confusion. So let's go back to our text editor, and let's start with the image, hero dash right. Let's give it flex of 50%, and let's give it height of 100%. Also let's set position to relative, and text align to center. Below that, let's select our image. So let's copy this and paste it here. Let's select our image. Let's give it position of absolute. Width should be 55 rem. Let's give it opacity of 0. Then transition of all 1000 milliseconds is in and out. Then for the left also, let's give it opacity of 0. So first, let's give it opacity of 0. Then scroll down, and below the image, let's select our image 1, image so dot mg1, and let's give it width of 85%. Let's give it right of negative 25%. Let's give it bottom of negative 50%. Then let's go to our index dot. It seems we didn't change the second one to img2. So now let's select img2. So we copy this down and change 1 to 2. Let's set width to 90%. Then the right should be negative 40 and the bottom should be negative 40. So when glide as a class of active, then we want to give them opacity of 1. So glide active, we want center, and we want the right, and we want image. Let's give it bottom of negative 3%. Let's give it opacity of 1. And let's set glide active. Let's select left, and let's give it opacity of 1. Then the top should be 35%. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we should have this. So when we go this way, we have this nice animations. You can also go this way. So let's go to our styles again. Let's start writing the media query. So media, and let's first start with max width of 999 pixels. So let's start with the glide active center. So this one, let's copy this and paste it here. Let's remove the opacity one and change the top to 15%. Then let's copy our images, the image 1 and image 2, paste it here. Let's move this right and bottom. The second one too, let's move the right and bottom. The first one, let's set the right and bottom, the width to 90%, and the second one should be 100%. Let's copy the media query down. So you can use Shift Alt and the down arrow key, Shift Alt and the down arrow key to copy. So let's change this to 567, and let's start with the center right. Let's select img, our image. Then we want the img1, and let's set width to 30 rem. Let's copy this down, and let's change this to 2, and let's change the width here to 33 rem. Sorry. Let's remove this, and let's select our hero. We want the hero and the glide also. So glide slides. Let's give it margin of 0, then padding 0, and 3 rem left and right. So let's save this. Now let's select our h1 in the left div, so h1, and let's give it font size of 3 rem. Let's copy it down and change the h1 to span, and let's change the font size to 1.4 rem. Let's copy it down again, and let's change the span to a paragraph, so p. Let's set font size to 1.5, and the width should be 80%. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and let's go to responsive mode. And now everything is responsive. If I go, we have this. If I go again, we have this. Click on the hamburger, we have our hamburger icon. Then let's close this. The next thing is to start with our category section. So you go to our index.html. So let's go to our index.html, and after the header, let's start with a comment. So let's say categories section. So we start with a section with a class of section and a secondary class of category. Within that, let's have our another div with a class cat dash center. Then within the cat center, let's have category as a single listing, and we want an image in it. So let's start by going into our images folder, and let's look for cat3.jpg. Let's save that. Below the image, let's start with a div, and we want paragraph with a text women's wear. Let's save that. Copy and paste the cat 2 times, and change the second image to image 2, the last one to 1, and the text in the paragraph, let's give this one accessories. So we start with a accessories. What is the spelling? Accessories. Then here we want men's wear. Let's save this, go back to our browser. So we want this. Let's close this, and we have our categories. So it needs some styling. Let's go to index.css. Scroll down, and let's start with a comment of category. Let's select our section and give it padding 10 rem, 0, 5 rem, and 0. So top should be 10 rem, right should be 0, then bottom should be 5 rem, and left should be 0. Let's give it overflow of hidden. Now let's select our cat center. So cat dash center, and let's give it display flex. Align items should be center. Let's set justify content to center. Max width to 114 rem. Let's set margin to auto, and let's give it padding of 0.3 rem. Now let's select our cat center again. Then we want the cat div, and let's give it a max width of 35 rem. So max width of 35 rem. Let's give it a height of 25 rem. Overflow of hidden. position relative. Let's give it cursor of pointer. Then let's give it text align of center. And let's select our cat again. This time we don't want the last child, so not last child. Let's give it margin right of 3 rem. Let's select the image in the cat, so we see img. Let's give it a width of 36.5 rem. Let's give it height of 100%. Sorry, there's a mistake here. 100%. Let's give it margin auto, and object fit should be cover. Then let's say transition to all 2 seconds ease. Now when we hover over the cat, let's select our image and give it, let's scale it. So we're going to use scale 1.1. Let's go back to our browser and check if everything works. So there is some mistake here. So let's see our cat center. We are setting display to flex, align items to center, justify content. So let's go back to this place and see if everything is correct. Okay, since there is some mistake somewhere, the divs are not properly arranged. So this is the cat div. Then we have okay. So this is the first cat div. Let's bring this outside and save. Then the second one, let's copy this. This is the first one. You should have an ending div. So its ending div is this. And this is the second one. The first one. So let's paste it here. And this should have a closing div. Let's save this, go back to our browser and see if it works. Okay, now we've arranged it properly. So let's go back to our styles.css and let's start with the div in the cat. So we're going to select the cat center. Next, let's select our cat and we want the div in the cat. Let's set position to absolute, bottom to 15%. Let's set left to 50%. Let's set translate x to negative 50%. Let's set background color to white. So we want white color. Let's set width to 18 rem. Height should be 5 rem. Text align should be center. Font size should be 2 rem. Let's give it font weight of 500. Let's save this and go back to our browser and we have this. Text align center height. So let's give it align height of 5 rem. Let's go back and we have the text in the center. So Now let's write some media queries. So let's start with media, and we want max width to be 1200 pixels. Let's start with our cart center. We want the cart and the image in the cart. Let's give it width of 30 rem. Let's copy this down, and the width should now be 967 pixels. Then we want the cart. Let's give max width of 25 rem and the height of 20 rem. Now let's select the image. So let's copy this and paste it down here. Let's give it a width of 25 rem. Let's copy this whole thing down again and change the value to 768 pixels. I'm going to select section. Start with a section. So section, and let's give it padding of 5 rem and 0. Now for the cut center, let's copy this, paste it here. For the cut center, let's set flex direction to column, and padding should be 3 rem. Then the cut in cut center, let's set max width of 100%. Let's give it a height of 30 rem, and not last child, not last child. Let's give it margin right of 0, then margin bottom of 5 rem. For the image, let's give it a width of 100%. Let's save this. Go to our browser. Let's go to the responsive mode, and we have this. All right, we are done with the categories section. The next thing is to start coding the new arrival product. So let's go to our text editor and go to index.html, and let's comment arrival. Now let's start with a section with a class of section, and a secondary class of new arrival. So new arrival. Within this, let's start with our title, and within the title, let's have h1 with a text new arrivals. Below the heading, let's have a paragraph with a text all the latest pick from top picked from designer. I don't know, just picked from our store. Let's just write our store. So our store. And after the title, let's start with product center. Within this, let's start with our product. So the individual product item. So product dash item. The first thing I'm going to have is the overlay. So we start with overlay, which would contain our image. So we start with a link with a class of product dash stamp, and this should go to the first. So we see product details .html, and within the link, let's have our img. Now let's go into images folder and select image 1. Let's save this. Below the overlay, let's have our product info. So that info, and it is a class. So product info. Within the product info, let's start with our span with a text men's clothes. Below the span, let's have a link going to product details dot html, product details. Within the link, let's have our product name, which is maybe best e-commerce top wear, just a random name. So below the link, let's have our price, which is h4, and we want the price to be 700. Let's save that. Copy this whole item. Let's save everything. So this is the item. Let's copy it down 7 times. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Let's save this. Go to the individual images. So this is the first item. The second one should be 2 3 4. Here is 5 6 7, and this, let's set it to maybe 2. So let's save this. Go to our browser, and now we have our products. So let's go back to our styles.css and start writing some styles for the product. There is some weird thing happening here. I've not written any styles for it, but they've taken shape already. Okay, so we have new arrival. Let's start with the title. Let's set text align to center. Let's give it margin bottom of 5 rem. Let's select our h1 in the title, then h1. Let's give it font size of 3 rem. Text transform to upper. Margin bottom to 1 rem. Font weight should be 6, not 600, 500 rather, 500. Now let's select our product center. So product dash center. Let's give it display of flex, align items center, justify content center. Let's get flex wrap of wrap. Then let's set max width of 120 rem. Margin should be 0 auto. Let's set padding to 0.2 rem. Now let's select our individual product item. So product item dash item. Let's set position to relative. Width should be 25, not 25, 27 rem. Let's set margin to 0 auto, and margin bottom should be 3 rem. Let's set our product. So let's select our product term. We want the image, and let's give it width of 100%, height of 31 rem, object fit of cover, transition to all 500 milliseconds, then linear. Let's get our product info dash info, and let's give it padding of 1 rem. Product info, so text align should be center, and we need the span and the link in the product info. So let's give it span. Display inline block, font size should be 1.2 rem. Color should be 666. This should be color. And let's give it margin bottom of 1 rem. Let's copy this down and change the span to link, so A. Let's set display to block. Font size should be 1.5, and let's give it some transition. So let's copy this, go and paste it down here, change 500 to 300 milliseconds. Margin bottom should be 1 rem. Now when we hover over the link, let's give it a color of green. Let's go to our browser, and we have our products nicely aligned. We are left with the icons. When we hover over them, the icons. So let's go to our index.html, and after the product info, so let's start with the first one. After the product info div, let's have our icons class here. So icons, and let's use a URL rather instead of a div. URL, and within the icons, let's start with our li. Within the li, let's have our first icon, which is bx dash heart. Copy this down 2 times, change the second one to search, the third one to cat. Save this. Let's go back to our browser and check if we have our icons. Yeah, we have the icons, so let's go and copy them. So copy this whole icon div, go below the next one, which is the product info, paste it. So I'm going to use Alt to put the cursor at the end of the info of every item. So let's look for the next one, info, the next one, info, the next one, info, the next one, the next one, then press enter and paste them here. Let's go to the browser, and we have our icons. There is some issue here. That's the second product. So the second product, we have it 2 times, so let's remove one. Let's go to our styles.css, and let's start with product dash item. We want icons, position to be absolute, left should be 50%. Let's give it top of 35%. Transform translate x should be negative 50%. Also, let's set display to flex, align items to center. Let's select the LIs in the icon. So li, let's give it background color of white. Text align should be center. Padding should be 1 rem, 1.5 rem. Font size should be 2.3 rem. Cursor should be pointer. Let's set transition to 300 milliseconds, ease in and out. Transform to translate Y of 20 pixels. Let's give it visibility of hidden, then opacity of 0. Now let's copy this and paste it down here. I will want the first child. Let's set transition delay of 0.1 seconds. Let's copy it down 2 times and change this to nth child, and here should be parenthesis. So this is 2, this is 3. Let's change the delay to 0.2. This should be 0.3. Now let's select our li again, paste it here, and we want, when we hover over the item, hover, we want to give the li's visibility of visible. Let's give it opacity of 1 and translate Y should be 0. So here should be 0 pixels. Let's select our li's again. Our li's, and not last child. Let's give margin right of 0.5 rem. Now for the li's, when we hover over them, let's give them background color of green. Let's set color to white. Now for the overlay, so we say product item dot overlay. Let's give it position relative, overflow hidden. So overflow hidden. Let's give it cursor of pointer, then set index of, let's give it -1 and C. Let's set width to 100%. Then the overflow after, so after, let's give it content of empty string, position absolute, top 0, left 0, width should be 100%, height should be 100%, background color should be RGBA 0,0,0,0.5. Let's set visibility to hidden, and let's set opacity to 0. Also, let's give it some transition of 300 milliseconds, then ease. So when we hover over the product item over, we want to give the after visibility of visible, then opacity should be 1. And when we hover over the item again, we want the product stamp. Then the image in it should have a transform scale of 1.1. Let's go back to our browser and we have this. Now we are going to have a span of discount in some of our product items. So let's go back to our HTML. Let's see if we have that there. We don't have it. So in product stamp of a random item, let's look for product stamp. Where is it? Product stamp. And after the link, let's have a span with a class of discount. And here, let's say 50%. Let's copy this and paste it in two more places. So product stamp, let's look for this one, product stamp, and after the link, save this, product stamp again, and after the so let's see, the format is not working here. This one too. Let's go back to our styles of CSS and let's select that class. We're going to say product, item, and discount. Let's set position to absolute. Top should be 1 rem. Left should be 1 rem. Background color should be var green. And padding should be 1.5, 0.5 rem and 1 rem. Let's set color to white. And border radius to 2 rem. Font size to 1.5 rem. Let's go back to our browser and we have this. Let's give the discount some z index z index of 2. Let's go back to our browser and we have this nice over effect also. Now let's start writing the media query. So for smaller devices, media, we want max width to be 567 pixels. And let's select our product center. And let's give it max width of 100%. Padding should be 1 rem. Let's select our product item. Let's give it width of 40% and margin bottom of 3 rem. Let's select the image in product stamp, so img. Let's give it height of 20 rem. And for product item, let's also give it margin right, so margin right of 2 rem. Let's select product item. We want the icons and the li. Let's give them padding of 0.5 rem and 1 rem. Then font size to 1.8 rem. Let's save this, go back to our browser, resize this, and we have this nice product section. Now the next one is to start with this banner here. We'll go to index.html and below the arrival section, Let's start with a comment of promo. We are going to start with a class of section. So section with a class of section and banner. Within this, let's have our left. We want a span with a class of trend. Within the span, let's write trend design. After the span, let's have our h1 with a text new collection 2021. Then after the h1, let's have a paragraph with a text new arrival and a span again. Let's give it a class of color, and the text should be sale 50% off. Then after the span, let's start with limited time offer. So offer. Let's save this. After the paragraph, let's have a button. So a button, so btn, and we want another secondary class of btn-1. The text should be discover now. Now below the left div, let's have our right div, which is the image, and within this, let's have our image element. Let's go into our images and look for banner. Let's save this, go back to our browser, close this also, and we have this huge image here which needs some styling. So let's go to styles.css, and let's start with a comment of banner. So banner, you can even write promo there. So banner, let's give it position relative, background color should be var gray 2. Let's give it padding of 14 rem. Within banner, let's select the right. We want image, position to absolute, bottom to 0, right to 0, width to 75 rem. Now let's select the trend class, so banner trend. We also want banner paragraph. Let's give it display block, font size of 2 rem. Let's set font weight to 400, which is the default, so you don't need to set it. Let's set margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Scroll down and let's select our h1, so banner h1. Let's give it font size of 5.4 rem. Color should be var black, and margin bottom should be 1.5 rem. Let's select our button, which is banner.btn. Let's give it display inline block, and margin top should be 2 rem. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and we have this nice looking banner. Let's start with the media queries. So we say at media, we want max width to be 1200 pixels. Let's start with banner class. Let's give it padding of 14 pixels, top and bottom, then left and right should be 2 rem. Let's select our images, so the image in the right div, let's give it right of -6%, and width should be 70%. Let's copy it down and change the value to 996. We want banner, the top and bottom should be 8, left and right should be 2. Now let's go and take our trend, the H1 and the H1 and the trend. Let's paste it here. Let's remove this display block and change the font size to 1.5. Let's remove the margin bottom also. The H1, let's set it to 4 rem, and let's remove this one also. Now let's select our image, so banner, right, the img, let's set right to -6%, then width to 50 rem. Let's copy it down again and let's change the value to 768. Banner should have display of grid, then grid template column should be 1fr, and height should be 80 vh. Let's start with the left, remove image, let's give it a width. Okay, we already have width here, so width of 100%. Margin bottom of 3 rem. Let's start with right, let's give it flex, not flex, can't use flex here. So we need our images, so the image, let's give it right of 0, then width should be 50 rem, and left should be 50%. Transition, so transform translate x to -50%. Let's remove this. We have to copy it down again. This is the last one, and change the value to 567. The banner should have padding of, let's check the first one, padding of 8 and 5. So padding 8 rem and 5 rem. Now let's copy the trend with the H1 and the button. So let's copy this, go and paste it here. Let's change the font size to 1.3. Then yeah, let's change the font size to 3. For the button, let's have banner, then btn. Let's give it padding of 0.8 rem, the 1.7 rem. Let's set font size to 1.4 rem. Now let's select the image and let's give it a width of, so let's move all this, remove this one also. Let's give it a width of 45 rem. Let's save this, go back to our browser and let's resize. Okay, we have to send this up a little bit. Let's go through our code. It seems there is some mistake somewhere, so let's scroll up and let's look for the media query 1200. The banner 14 to, we are setting image -6. This should be 70 rem. Now for the second media query, we need padding 8 to, paragraph should be 1.5, paragraph should be 1.5, and the trend should be 1.5 also. The H1 should be 4 rem. Then we need to remove this because we've repeated. So this should be -6, 50 rem. The next one, we set display to grid template 1 FR 80 VH 100% 3. The right should be, so banner right should be flex 50%. Then margin, yeah, we have the image, so we say 0, width should be 50 rm, left should be 50%. Now let's go to 567. 567, we start with the banner, the trend 1.3, and margin bottom should be 1 rem. The H1 margin bottom should be 1 rem also. For the button, we set padding top and bottom should be 0.8 rem, then 1.7 rem. Font size should be 1.4 rem. Then the image is width should be 45 rem. Let's go back to our browser, refresh this, and still I don't know where the fault is from. So for the button, let's remove, maybe the button has some margin. Let's set margin to 0. Okay, now we have it well placed. So let's bring back our padding, go back. We need to reduce the size of the H1 to 2. Now it looks good. Let's change. Okay. The next thing is to start with the contact section. The contact section. Not the contact section. The featured. We need the featured section before the contact. So let's go back to our browser. Sorry. Let's go back to our text editor. Then index.html. Below that, let's start with the comment of featured section. Go back to our arrival section and copy everything. Copy everything. Go and paste it below the featured section comment. Let's remove some of the items. Let's save this and check if, okay, we have 4. So what we need to do is to change the name to, let's also randomly change the images. So this one can be, let's say 6, this one 3, this one maybe 4, this one can be 7, and let's change here to featured. So featured product. Let's go back to our browser and we have our featured product. The next thing is to start with our contact section. So let's go back to our text editor and below the featured product, Let's start with a comment of contact. Now with the contact, let's start with a section with a class of section and a secondary class of contact. Within the contact section, let's have a row, and within this row, let's have two calls. So we start with the first one, call. Let's duplicate this, and within the first one, let's start with an h2, and the text should be excellent support. Underneath the h2, let's have a paragraph with lorem of, let's say, 15. Let's shorten this a little bit. Underneath the paragraph, let's have a button with a class of btn and a secondary class of btn-1. And within the button, let's have a text of contact. Let's save this. Now let's move to the second column. We are going to start with a form. We don't need any action. And within the form, let's start a div. And within this div, let's have an input of email. Let's remove this ID and name. Now let's have our placeholder with a text of email address. Underneath the input, let's have another button. Within this, let's write send. Let's save this, go to our browser, and we have the content here. Let's close this for now. Let's go to our styles of CSS and start writing some styles for the contact. Let's start with the comment contact. Let's select the contact class and give it background of black, var black. Let's set the color to white. Padding, top and bottom should be 10 rem, then left and right should be 20 rem. Let's select the contact class again, and now row. We need the row in the contact class, and let's set display to grid template columns to 1fr, and let's set align items to center. Now let's select the first column, call, and we need the h2. Let's give it margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Let's copy this down, and let's select the paragraph. Let's give it margin bottom of 2 rem, and width should be 70%. Let's save this. Now let's select our btn-1, give it background color of var green. Let's give it color of white, and display should be inline block. Let's also give it a border radius of, let's say, 1 rem. Padding should be 1 rem, then 2 rem. Let's go to our browser, and we have the left side. Let's start with the right side. So we start with contact, and let's select the form and the div within the form. Let's give it position relative, and width should be 80%. Sorry, width. Let's also give it margin 0 auto. Now let's select the input within the form. The input, and let's give it font family of, so font family of Poppins, sans serif. Let's give it a text indent of 2 rem, and border radius should be 1 rem, and width should be 100%. So width should be 100%. Border radius should be 1 rem. Let's give it padding. Top and bottom should be 1.5 and 0, left and right. Let's give it outline of none, border of none. Now let's select the button within the form. Let's give it position absolute. Top should be 0, left, right should be 0. Background color should be our green color. Let's give it color white. And let's set margin to 1.5 rem, padding to 1 rem, 3 rem. Let's set border radius to 1 rem. Now let's go back to our browser, and we have this. Let's check if they are the same. The font sizes are different. All right, that's for the paragraph. Let's give it font size of 1.5 or 1.5 rem. Let's go back. It's not taking effect. Let's say 1.3. Okay, this looks okay. Now let's write some media queries. So we start with media, and we want max width should be 996 pixels. Let's select our contact class, and let's give it padding all side 8 rem. Now let's copy this down, and let's select the row in the contact. Let's give it grid template columns of 1 fr, and gap should be 5 rem and 0. Let's select a div in the form, so contact, then we need a form div. Let's give it width of 100%. Copy this down again, this let's change this to 768 and this to 567. Now the 567, let's have only contact. Let's move this, and for contact, let's give it padding 8 rem and 1 rem. Let's go back to our browser, resize, and we have it. So we have the first column and the second column, which is the form. The next thing is to start with our footer. So we start with our footer. Let's close this pop-up, our footer. Let's go back to our index.html. Underneath the contact, let's start with a comment of footer. Now you're going to use a footer tag, so footer with a class of footer. Let's start with a row, and within this row we are going to have three columns. So call, and each column should have a secondary class of dflex. And within the first column, let's start with an h4 with a text of information. Underneath that, let's have some links. So the first one with a text of about us. Let's copy this down 3 more times and change the text of the second one to contact us. Then here we have terms. The last one is shipping guide. Now let's copy this column down 2 times, and the second column let's have useful link for the h4, and let's change this to, let's say, online store. Then the second one, let's say customer service. The third one, let's change it to promotion, and the last one, let's have top brands. Now the last column, we are going to have some icons. So let's move this and start with a span, and within the first one, let's start with an I with a class of bx.bxl dash facebook dash square. Let's copy this down 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's more than that. And let's change the second icon to Instagram dash alt. The third one, let's have GitHub. The fourth one, let's have Twitter. The last one, let's have Pinterest. Let's save this, go to our browser, let's close this, let's scroll down, and now we have the first column, the second column, and the third column. So we now have to go to our styles of CSS and start writing some styles for the footer. Then we'll start with a comment of footer. So let's get our footer class. So we say footer. Let's give it padding 7 rem, 1 rem, and a background color of green, var green. Let's select the row. So footer, we want the row. Let's set display to grid template columns to repeat, let's say 3 times, 1 fr. Let's set max width to 99.6 rem, and margin should be 0 auto. Now let's select the column, so footer core. Let's set flex direction to column, and color should be white. Let's set align items to flex start. Let's select the first, not the first, the last column. So we say last child. Let's set flex direction to row. Justify content to center. Now let's select the span in the last child. The span. And let's give it font size of 2.5 rem, margin right of, let's say, 0.5 rem, and let's give it some color of var dash white. Now let's start with our footer class again. Let's select the column, then the links in the column. Let's give them color white. Font size should be, let's say, 1.5 rem. Let's give them padding 0.5 rem on all sides. Font weight should be 300. So we need to go to, let's set it to 400. That's the default font size. Font weight, not font size, sorry. Now let's select our footer and our column. We want the H4. Let's give it margin bottom of 1 rem. Now let's go back to our browser and we have this. So we've created a footer. What is left is to write some media query at media. And we want max width should be, let's say, 567 pixels. And let's select our footer. We want our row. Let's give it grid template columns of 1 fr, and row gap should be 3 rem. Let's save this, go to our browser, resize this to mobile view, and we have our footer. Now let's close this. What is left now is the pop-up. So let's go to our text editor, and underneath the footer, let's write a comment of pop-up. Now let's start with a div with a class of pop-up and another class of hide dash pop-up. So within this, let's start with pop-up dash content, and within this, let's have our close button. So a div with a class of pop-up dash close, and within this close button, let's have an icon with a class of bx dash x. Let's save this. Underneath the close icon, let's have a div with a class of pop-up dash left, and within this left pop-up, let's have a pop-up dash img dash container. So this is a container for our image. Let's start with img, and it should have a class of pop-up img pop-up dash img. Now let's go into our images folder and select pop-up. Let's save this. Go to the bottom of the pop-up left, and let's have pop-up dash right. Within this, let's start with right content, and within the right content, let's have an h1 with a text get discount, and a span 50%. And after the span, let's have off. Underneath the H1, let's have a paragraph with a text of sign up to our newsletter and save 30% for your next purchase. No spam, no spam, comma, we promise. Then underneath the paragraph, let's have a form, and within this form, let's have our input, a type of email, and a placeholder. Let's give it enter your email, and let's give it a class of popup dash form. Let's save this. Underneath the input, let's have a button subscribe. Let's save this. Go back to our browser, and below the footer we have our popup. Let's go to our styles of CSS, and let's start with the comment of popup. So let's select our popup class, and let's give it position of fixed. Let's give it top 0, left 0, width of 100%, and height should be 100 VH. Let's give it background color of RGB. Let's give it 0.5, and let's set Z index to, let's say, 9999, and transition to 0.3 seconds. Let's give it a let's use scale rather of 1, and popup content dash content. Let's set position to absolute. We want top should be 50%, left 50%, width should be, let's give it 90%, and margin should be 0 auto. Now height should be 55 rem. Translate, let's say -50%, -50%. Let's give it padding of 1.6 rem, and display to table. Let's give it overflow of hidden, and background color should be white. Now let's select the close button, so popup dash close. Let's give it display of flex, align items center, justify content center, position absolute. Top should be 2 rem, right should be 2 rem, padding should be 0.5 all rounds, background color should be our green color over green. Underneath the background color, let's have border radius of 50% and a cursor of pointer. Let's save this and let's select our pop-up dash left. So let's give it a color of white and a font size of, let's say, 3 rem. Let's go to our browser and we have this. Now let's start with the pop-up left. So we are going to say maybe display should be table cell, and let's give it width of 50%. Height should be 100%. Let's give it vertical align of middle. Let's select, so let's copy this down and change the left to right. 50%, 100%. This time around we don't need height to be 100%. Align, vertical align should be middle. Let's give it some padding. Padding 3 rem and 5 rem. And let's select the image container. So pop-up dash img dash container, and let's give it a width of 100%, overflow of hidden. Now let's select the image in the pop-up image container. We want the pop-up dash img, and let's give it display block width of 60 rem. Let's give it a height of 45 rem, max width of, let's say, 100%. Border radius should be 1 rem, and object fit should be cover. And let's select the right content. So let's say right dash content, and let's give it text align center, and width should be 85%, and margin should be 0 auto. Let's go to our browser and we have this. There are still more stuff to write, so let's copy this right content and paste it here. We want the H1, and let's set font size to 4 rem. Color should be black 00. Let's give it margin bottom of, let's say, 1.6 rem. Now let's select the span in the H1 span, and let's give it color of green. So let's say green. And let's select the paragraph in the right content, and let's give it font size of 1.6 rem, color of 555, margin bottom of, let's say, 1.6 rem. Now let's select the form. So pop up, I can't even type pop up, and we want the form. Let's select width to be 100%. Let's set padding to 1.5 rem 0. Let's set text indent to to let's say 1 rem, and margin bottom of 1.6 rem. Let's give it border radius of 3 rem, and let's set background color to green, var green, and let's give it color of white. Font size should be 1.8 rem, and border should be none. Now let's select the placeholder, so Popup. Let's copy this. Popup, we want the placeholder. Let's give it color of white. Now when we focus in the popup, so focus, let's give it outline of none. Now let's go to our browser, and we have this. Now let's give some styles to the button here. So you say write content. Where is write content? Let's copy this. Write content, we want the link, and let's copy this down. When it is visited, let's give it display inline block. Padding should be 1.8 rem, 5 rem. Let's set border radius to 3 rem. Font weight to 700. Let's set color to white, and background color should be our black color. And let's set border to 1 pixel, solid, var gray 2, and let's give it transition of 0.3 seconds. Now when we hover over the link, let's give it background color of var green, and let's give it color of, let's say, var black. Now when we have hide dash popup, we want to set the transform scale to 0.2, and opacity should be 0, and visibility should be hidden. Let's comment this out for now. We'll be adding this class with JavaScript. Now let's go back to our browser, and we have this. Now we have to start with media query, media, and we want max width of, let's say, 1200 pixels. Let's select our write content. Let's give it width of 100%, and let's select the H1 in the write content, the H1, and let's give it font size of, let's say, 3.5 rem, and margin bottom of 1.3 rem. Let's copy this down and change the value to 998. Let's start with pop up right, pop app dash right. Let's give it width of 100%, and for the left, change this to left and give it display of none. Now for the H1, let's give it font size of 5 rem, and let's move the margin button. Let's copy this down again and change the max width to 768. For the H1, let's give it a font size of 4 rem. Let's copy it down and change the H1 to paragraph, and let's give it font size of 1.6 rem. Now let's select the form. So Popup dash form. Let's give it a width of 90% and margin should be 0 or 2. And let's give it padding of 1.8 rem 0. Margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Now let's go back to our browser and let's resize this to see if everything is working. So it's left with one media query. We need to copy this down again and change the value to 567. Now we want the pop-up right, so pop-up right. Let's give it padding of 1.6 rem, and let's select the content, so pop-up dash content, and let's give it height of 35 rem and width should be 90%. Let's give it margin of 0 or 2. Now let's select the right content and let's give it width of 100%. Now for the H1, let's give it font size of 3, and for the paragraph, let's give it 0.4, and let's select the form. So let's say pop-up form, let's give it a width of 100% and margin, let's remove this. Padding should be 1.5 top and bottom, and for the margin bottom, let's give it 0.3. Now let's select our links. So we say right content, we need our link, visited, and let's give it padding of 1.5 rem and 3 rem. Let's save this, and now let's select our pop-up close, app dash close, and let's give it top of 1 rem and right of 1 rem and padding of 0.5 rem. Let's go back to our browser and change this to iPhone, and we have it nicely. There is still some issues, but let's leave that for now and go to our JavaScript and add. So our JavaScript, let's start with comment of pop-up, and let's select the pop-up document.query selector. We want the class of pop-up, and let's select the close icon also. So close pop-up should be document.query selector let's say pop-up dash close. Now let's have an if statement. If pop-up, then close pop-up dot add event listener. We want a click event, and our callback function should be, let's get our pop-up pop. This thing is really confusing. Pop-up, and give it class list, and let's add hide dash pop-up. And now let's set an event listener on the window, and we want a load event. Our callback function, let's copy this. So let's first start with set timeout, and within this we are going to take this line, bring it here, and let's remove hide, and for the time let's set it to 1 second. So we save this, go to our styles or CSS and go and uncomment this class. Now let's go back to our browser and let's refresh. Let's reload again. Okay, everything works correctly. Let's close it. Let's refresh again. Alright, we are done with the index.html page. The next will be to create the shops page. This is a shops page. Then we focus on the cart page also, then the login and sign up. Then let's say the product details page. Then we have this nice zoom effect. So I'll see you in the next video.